Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Now, as I'm sure you can probably guess, movies like The Devil Wears Prada aren't my typical fare. I don't have any particular issues with the genre, it's just not the type of thing I go in for when I'm looking for a movie to watch. But after being assaulted by the ad campaign for the sequel, I thought I'd take a look back at what all the hubbub was about with the first movie. After all, it was a cultural phenomenon in its day, and with a cast this stacked, how bad could it possibly have been? I'm here to tell you, I was very surprised by how much I enjoyed this movie. But maybe not for the reasons you're thinking. So with that being said, this isn't some highbrow critique of the film or a lambasting of the chick flick genre. It's more just some of my thoughts and impressions as I dove into the world of high fashion. Ready? Alright, let's get into it. Now, before we go any further, I want to talk about the fact that I don't think that Miranda Priestley is the villain of this movie. Like, at all. She is an incredibly high-powered, very high-functioning career woman who operates flawlessly at the highest levels of her industry, and who expects the same from those who work for her. You know, I actually did some napkin math on Miranda's schedule, and this woman is insane. It's no wonder she drinks enough coffee daily to caffeinate the entirety of the Upper East Side. If I wasn't so sure she had mints or something in her desk, I'd say her coffee breath must be heinous. But anyway, assuming she arrives at work at 9 o'clock and doesn't leave until 6, that's a 9-hour day of just work. Every day. Then she's got to handle everything else in her life until the book is delivered to her, at best at 11. You know she spends at least 2 to 3 hours on it, which puts her in bed at 2 a.m. Then, depending on her morning routine, we can assume that she's up at 6 at the latest. That's 4 hours of sleep, people. And she does this every day. Throughout the film, there are these montages of her rattling off a bunch of tasks that she needs completed. And they're intended to show how demanding she is, but I submit to you this point. Every task she gives her assistants is something that she has no time to do herself. She doesn't seem to be asking them to put in any more work than she does on a daily basis. Yes, she snaps off a 20-item list for them like it's no big deal. But bear in mind that, until she delivers that list, she keeps all of it in her head before relaying it verbatim to Andrea and Emily. The movie keeps going on and on about how difficult it is for Andrea to keep track of this stuff. But a $20 tape recorder from Radio Shack, does anyone else remember Radio Shack? Would have solved all her problems in about a half a second. So, from my perspective, all of Andy's problems are basically of her own making. Which leads me neatly into my next point, which is that it's actually Andrea and not Miranda who is the villain of this piece. First off, I'd just like to say that, despite their best efforts, you cannot make Anne Hathaway look frumpy by slightly curling her hair. It just doesn't work like that. But it's indicative of this she's not like other girls through line that they pushed so hard that it eventually just started to irritate me. Because they're right. She isn't like the other girls that work at the magazine. They are actual professionals that are trying to get ahead in their chosen field. They dress well, they work hard, they're hard chargers busting their collective asses while in a caloric deficit that would make a stage-ready bodybuilder scream in terror. Andrea, meanwhile, rolls in fresh out of college expecting the world to collapse at her feet. She wants to be a journalist, but feels that working for one of the largest publications in the world is beneath her. She wants to climb to the top, but fails to recognize, despite being told outright, that working for Miranda will open more doors for her than any other job in the world possibly could. She snorts with derision at the idea of fashion, even though it represents
millions of dollars and countless jobs.
She's arrogant, disrespectful, haughty, and so convinced of her own intellectual superiority that she actually looks down on the idea of caring about one's personal appearance. But I'll tell you this, if I had both versions of Andrea come in for a job interview, the one in the
lumpy blue sweater
or the one that took the time to wear something appropriate, I know which one I'd hire. What really kills me, though, is that she thinks working anywhere else at that level of the publication industry is going to be any different. And even if it is, she's going to be so overprepared by this job that she'll soar to the top on Hermes wings. But, as with all good stories, she has her character arc and gradually comes to understand that being professional is important. Until she throws it all away on a whim, completely destroying her credibility, leaving her boss in the lurch for a kitchen commis who wasn't going to have time for her anyway, and forgetting every lesson she learned in the years she was working for Miranda. If I were Miranda, I would have destroyed her for that. I would have made sure she couldn't get a job writing for the Penny Saver in Dubuque, Iowa for that fucking stunt. She girl bossed way too close to the sun on that one, let me tell you. One of the things that truly shocked me about this film was just how many heavy hitters they got for it. Normally, with a breezy chick flick, industry phrase, not mine, you've got the A-lister as the main character and a bevy of lower-tiered actors picking up his or her slack. But this movie is seriously stacked. You've got Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, Stanley Tucci, Meryl Streep, Tom Brady's ex-wife.
Tom Brady could do that.
Tom Brady could do that.
Honestly, this movie hits another tier just on its cast alone. Meryl Streep flawlessly plays Miranda as the Darth Vader of the fashion world, an ominous presence that you will submit to. There's this incredible moment where she gives Andrea a once-over, and as I watched, I desperately wanted to know what soul-cleaving, self-esteem-crushing insult she had in the chamber. That one look was the equivalent of Vader force-choking that general in A New Hope. Incredible. And then we've got the Tooch playing the eternally put-upon Nigel to utter perfection. I don't know what it is, but this man just has that old-school Hollywood cool that I don't think gets nearly enough recognition. Like, he's not a Steve McQueen or a James Dean. Rather, he's a Cary Grant or Gene Kelly or a Bing Crosby. You know, without the alcoholism and domestic violence. He carries himself with such an easy confidence that it's practically magnetic. And this is across his entire oeuvre, mind you. Not just this film. We've got Emily Blunt in what was apparently her second ever film credit, playing the delightfully vicious Emily. And, funnily enough, given that she was the main character, to round out the cast, we've got Anne Hathaway, playing to what was then her type as the ugly duckling character that becomes a swan. It's funny, I looked up that genre of film and there was about a 10-year run where Hollywood desperately tried to convince audiences that actresses like Anne Hathaway, Evan Rachel Wood, and Lindsay Lohan were somehow not attractive because they wore glasses and were a little nerdy. Wild times, man. Now, I don't consider myself a fashion guy. I know what works on me and how to dress myself. It's all about the silhouette, people. But that's about the extent of my knowledge. And even I can tell that this movie has some great costume designers behind it. Which it should have. Could you imagine the lambasting this movie would have taken had it not actually showcased high fashion the way it did? Anyway, as I watched, I actually found myself digging into the whys behind the costuming decisions behind each character. First up, we've got Miranda and her timeless wardrobe. No really fancy patterns or ostentatious glitz, just solid colors and classic lines, offset by perfectly chosen accessories. She knows what she's about and doesn't have a damn thing to prove to anyone. We've got Nigel, the art director, experimenting with layered colors and patterns that punch up his look, but god damn that ring, am I right? It's like that was his pimp hand and he needed something really heavy to get some speed on it. And obviously we've got Andrea herself, the beautiful young lady that's basically a Barbie doll for Nigel to dress up. She doesn't really have a specific look per se, and you can tell that she's kind of experimenting to dial in what she likes and what she doesn't. It all works so perfectly, and this is without a cohesive design language, beyond the obscene costs of the clothing, to really bring everyone together. I don't know, I just really appreciate what they did with it, as it really brought the whole movie together. I enjoyed The Devil Wears Prada a lot more than I thought I would. I had always imagined it as this kind of vapid snooze fest that didn't really have anything to offer me, and I was pleasantly surprised to find out just how wrong I was. Now, does this mean I'll be watching the sequel anytime soon? Absolutely not. As far as I'm concerned, the sequel is just another attempt by Hollywood to cash in on an IP that had its moment in the sun over 20 years ago. You know the ones I'm talking about. Coming to America, Dumb and Dumber 2, both Indiana Jones sequels, Independence Day resurgence. The kind of movies that someone wrote a treatment for, then stuck in a drawer for 20 years until they needed something for a pitch meeting. Let me know down in the comments if you like the sequel or not, and maybe I'll give it a shot once it comes to streaming. Anyway, that's all I've got for you this time, so if you could do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe buttons, I'd really appreciate it. Every little bit really helps me out. Also, head down to the comments and let me know if there's anything you guys would like to see me cover in the future. And while you're at it, go ahead and check out the other videos on my channel, or hit up my website to see my blog and maybe check out one of my books on Amazon. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.